Hey, welcome to Table Talk. It's Jonathan Harmon with the J. Harmon Home Team Williams. And, this is always the highlight of my week because I get to talk to some really cool folks that are doing great things right here in our community. And today is absolutely no exception to that. I've got Thom and Gloria Christy that are involved in a gazillion different things. We're going to focus on a couple of them, but I do kind of want to hear the summary, and then we'll pick the ones that we're going to talk about. Does that sound okay to you guys? So let's start with some of the day jobs. How about that? And we'll go from there, and then we'll get to the fun stuff, right?
Right.
So Gloria, let's start with you. So what is your job and title over there?
Well, actually, I'm owner and partner with my brother with
Right.
Shacklett's Photography, but my degree's in education, so I actually came out of the public school situation here in Murfreesboro City Schools. I was classroom teacher, kindergarten and first grade,
Oh wow.
and I was actually hired by the Mr. Hobgood to go to Bellwood and then to Hobgood, then to Reeves Rogers for a while. But I guess that's why when I came to the studio, I felt like it was a better fit right then for my life situation because I could be with my family and I could also they could help me raise my children. So
Sure.
it seemed like a better choice at the time. But I became very involved with just the story of the history of our community through my dad's photographs. I just got immersed into that. Daddy had no idea what he had, and he was just such a documentarian, and he didn't even know that aspect of it.
Right.
And I said, Daddy, do you know what you have here? And he just kind of, so because he lived it. It just it wasn't.
It was natural. It wasn't purposeful necessarily.
It really wasn't anything that he thought that was special or different. But
All right, pause right there.
yeah,
So let's make sure everybody that's listening knows what we're talking about. So Shacklett's, how many pictures are you guys up to?
oh my goodness, there's no end to it, and that's become a kind of a blessing and a curse because it's so much of the history of Rutherford County.
So there's a repository of photographs dating back to basically since photographs could be taken.
Well,
right?
I guess the earliest photographs that we have are in the 1860s of Murfreesboro. So, but of course that predates my dad. But Dad was also a collector. I mean, when folks would bring things in that were probably just needed restoration, he would restore them and give people copies, and then we'd put them in our files because there wasn't the Center for Historic Preservation then. There wasn't Center for Pop Music. There wasn't even the Gore Center then. So we were kind of just at, like you said, a repository by just kind of happenstance.
Well, by location, by reputation,
right.
all of those things, and so I have actually had a chance to peek just a little bit into the vault. I wanted to get some old MTSU pictures, and you and I sat and
exactly.
Holy cow! Talk about overwhelming. And the
It
fun
is
part,
overwhelming.
Thom, you should have seen this. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I'd like to have a picture of something on campus and football team and something. I can't remember what the other thing was. And she's like, oh, and there it was, and I'm like, how did you do that? So give yourself credit here because you have a pretty good idea of what's in that repository for the most part.
Well, the thing that has led us to some of the community involvement that we have is the fact that particularly with music and like you were talking about sports, they seem to have gone together with
Well, they're highly photographed.
Well, that's exactly right.
Right? I mean, very few people just stand on the corner and just take pictures of cars or whatever. But if there's an event, whether it's music, whether it's parades, I've got a picture of the
MTSU.
Of that, but also the when General
Douglas MacArthur.
That parade. I've got a photo of that parade, and that's awesome, right?
Well, yeah, and with that having been an educator. And now, as we're changing so rapidly in our community, I feel like that we really have to save that collection, share it with the next generation, find better ways.
You better have backups upon backups.
Exactly, and it is, but we haven't even begun to do. I know Thom has done such a great job at and Bill too, trying to capture it, digitally capture everything. But that's a whole day in itself, a whole other side of the business, which we do try to run because we're running a business simultaneously. And
I
so,
mean, still
yeah.
arguably the most renowned just photographer.
Right. Well, yeah, cause just like this, we do class reunions and Little League baseball and family portraits. And
Yeah.
during just recently in the spring, we did we have a thing called special edition portraits. So we did a Peter Rabbit's Garden, which in the very moment that we were photographing the grandchild, the grandmother and mother and great grandmother, 4 generations were in this same room that we had all photographed, and that was just freaky.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Dad had photographed the great grandmother and grandmother, and then the mother and the baby we had photographed. So it's
all right. So pull back the curtain for just a sec, and then we're gonna switch to Thom for a second. Do you and Bill still fight?
Oh, yeah. I have to tell you, that was a really dear friend of Bill's. We're brother and sister. I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
But, so my curiosity there. So my brother and I, we're still close and everything. And,
yeah,
and
we're
every
very
now and then
close.
we still get a little cross with each other. I'm like, okay, do we ever grow out of that?
No.
Okay.
Good
to know.
In fact, well, and that's part of the thing. I think that my dad, he'd tell one of his friends. He said when we decided to go in business together and take the business, from Mom and Dad and change the ownership, he said, "Well, I give him 2 years." Well, that's been that's been a while. That's been since '89, so I think we're going to be okay.
You'll be okay.
We'll be okay.
That's right.
And that's part of the process. As we're kind of different personalities. And,
that makes sense.
And we've always done projects together, though. Even as children, we'd have these most elaborate. We had this clubhouse called the Yellow Door Clubhouse, and we did all these enterprises with Yellow Door Clubhouse.
Awesome.
We were the little rascals for real. We were in real life. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So, I remember the story of you and Bill were going to do a lemonade stand out in front of your Uncle John's store.
Snow cones. It was snow cones.
Snow cones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were out there and just having at it, arguing with each other. Finally, Uncle John came out to you'll sell a whole lot more snow cones if you're not sitting here arguing.
That was lesson number 1.
That's funny. That's funny. If you are going to argue, go over there for a few minutes.
Yeah. He goes behind the wall, and I go upstairs, and it's
and I get caught.
I'm usually right, though.
Of course you are. Of course. And I would tell Bill nothing different than that. So.
But being in family therapy and that sort of thing, they talk about somebody getting triangled in an argument.
Yeah.
I have just had to learn over the years to just
let him have it.
Smile and nod. That's it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure. So, Thom, you've had all kinds of different careers as well. You've been a minister and radio and all kinds of different things. So, what is your thing now?
My thing now is a combination of things. I care about musicians a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Having been one, and still am one. It's sort of like if you're a musician, you're
sure
for the rest of the journey, it's going to have music in it.
That's right.
So,
but putting food on your plate,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the bass player off your porch? But it's the kind of thing where the arts are very big in that. I love to see people but when they really are dig into it to get that sculpture right or that painting right or that recording right, it's work.
Yeah, it's a process.
And people think that they just are, like the song says, just laying in the sun having fun all day. If you're going to do a good record, you're working at it.
Sure.
And hours and hours, and now with Pro Tools, you're editing notes. I sometimes think a live performance is always preferable because they're really creating and they're really doing the ensemble sound, and it's not something that's constructed in a lab.
Yeah, it's spontaneous.
Yeah, so that's important, and seeing kids grow up with that, I feel like that's a real lack, which is what brought about the chord idea, was to try to support musicians, but also to try to expose music and the process of making music together to children. Who may be isolated from that, who may think of music as just something they put in your ear with a phone or whatever, or the idea that they could actually play music, they could actually learn to craft music for themselves. That gets from the inside out. And that's what ties the left and right hemisphere of the brain together so much better. They've done studies and found that people who are doing music have far more connections between the left and right brain, which really helps your personality, helps you be able to intellectually think about things, and be more empathetic to other people around you, because you're always a musician's always looking for that next line. You're always
Sure.
taking notes about lyrics and hearing music in places that may just be street noise.
Mm-hmm.
But listening for patterns and that sort of thing. It's a different way of looking at life, different way of thinking, that I think is pretty special. I think we were created to be musicians, and some people never have the exposure to it, and maybe design a life around whatever it is that they're interested in without it. But
Well, I will tell you, I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
Okay. I was not created to be a musician. I am really good at playing the radio, and that's about
there
it.
you go. There
So
you go.
if I start to sing and clap at the same time, I'll lose the beat. I mean, we're talking within like 5 seconds.
How are you at chewing gum and walking?
Not great, not great, not great at it. It's a fact. It just doesn't work.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and I've tried. I mean, I've tried playing guitar. I've tried, several things. I took lessons, wasted a lot of money. Hey, Jeff,
there you
it
go.
wasn't your fault, dude. You're a great teacher. I'm a horrible student. So, Jeff Butterworth in Smyrna tried to teach me for about 6 months, and he's a phenomenal player and a great teacher.
And yet you're putting
I'm just
together
not.
businesses that feature music. I mean, I know you have a heart for it.
Well, the appreciation is there,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, as horrible as I am at it, the appreciation is magnified.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
our gifts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you brought up Chord. Let's dive into that for just a minute. So Chord is an organization here in Murfreesboro. How long's it been around? What is the purpose? And then the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of it. Like, what do you do to do what you want to do?
Well, I'm going to start because what brought this whole thing
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And many of our listeners will know that there's been, you can't go without, everywhere you go, Murfreesboro is growing everywhere.
Sure.
And a lot of things, particularly in the art situation, particularly in venues and with the artists themselves, there's the situation is so dynamic. There's fewer places to play. Artists are not really, I think, are really attentive. The people aren't attentive to what this change is doing to them. And we sort of knew that. I knew this several years ago at Uncle Dave Macon Days when there was talk of the 2035 thing, that they were going to be daylighting Lateral Creek, and all of that was going on. So I knew our days were numbered there. And I know a lot of people didn't understand why we were having to pivot and move and do all this. But the reason why was it is changing, not that folks and I think some things just what wasn't considered, that they might be collateral damage for this, and so and it was, and so things like the International Folk Fest, which is coming up soon.
That's right.
They didn't have a place. They were supposed to be at Cannonsburg. That didn't happen. Then or they had to move it literally, and
these are institutions. Uncle Dave Macon Days has been around for.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and Steve Cates, he's been the director. He's 50 years at doing this event. And then there was Jazz Fest that was on the square. And then it just seems like a lot of people were making decisions not considering the people that had been downstream doing this for years. And so several of us would just think, wait, what is going on here? Rather than to come out and be negative about it, what could we do to bring it together to a collaborative group that we would be better together, and we could make decisions and we couldn't make policy or change policy. That was the thing. But how could we come at this at a different way without being negative in our community? And I'll tell you, that was hard to do because you can get an attitude about this when
Sure.
you weren't considered for, and then of course other things were happening that commercial thing that were decisions that were made for things that we had nothing to do with, yet all the time we were here.
Well, and one thought that comes to mind as you're talking about this. So I was involved in the Jazz Fest
Right.
situation in that decision making, and I think a lot of people, I think the whole story is never told.
That's
Right,
right.
Ever, right, in anything, right. So that's number one. But then the other thing is, I think a lot of folks enjoy the items, whether it's Jazz Fest or Uncle Dave or whatever. They enjoy it, but they don't necessarily appreciate how it happens.
How the sausage
Right.
is made.
Yes, exactly. So you show up at the, let's take Jazz Fest for example. You show up at the square on Saturday morning or whatever, and there's a giant stage there. There's a smaller stage over here. There's vendors over here.
Right.
There's people playing music. There's there's kids running around, and you walk up and you go, oh, this is fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you don't realize that for 6 months, all of those things have
Right.
been happening, or 9 months, or even since the last one sometimes, right? And then all of a sudden the rain clouds open up, which Jazz Fest, I don't know how, but it's like every single year.
2 or 3 times. It was
Yeah.
tragic every
Right.
It's
time.
crazy. And then, you have 400 people show up.
Right. Well, and the other thing is,
Or it's cold.
I think what we found out, and I know Tom's more intimately involved in it than that, how the children, the students, the middle and high school students, that was their kind of like their final event where they could
Yeah, it tied
perform.
it all up.
They're a live audience. So I think rather than being just respond to it in a negative way, we just pivot and decide to do. And I know they did.
They
It
did.
turned out great
Phenomenal
at the
job.
fountains, and it looks like it's going to be a good home for them. We were at the fountains last year, but
Right.
again, they're putting together. They're growing too, and there's a lot of construction about to happen out there. So it would not be such a good fit for us. And also, our goal and mission is to perpetuate and preserve old time and the history of Middle Tennessee. That
Right.
is through the culture. So, although it was a beautiful place, we loved the fountains. It was great.
Just kind of clashed with the.
Well, it was a gorgeous place. I'm not going to say that. I loved the way the production of it was easy and a lot of easier. It was a real plug and play for us because we hadn't been live since 2019. So it was a good thing, but and we made it work, but it wasn't exactly for long term. One of the things that, in terms of our purposes, and also speaking to the chord idea, when we got the musicians together, the very first meeting we had, I think it was the first in March, right? The first Monday in March
of this year.
Of this year, yeah.
Okay.
When we first finally got our group together, one of the things musicians wanted to do was to be in the schools, go to the kids. That was like the. Where did that come from? I mean, it was almost unanimous that they want the whatever efforts that they were their talents and gifts and skills. They want to share it with the younger generation.
Well, and I don't know if this still happens, but I remember vividly. I grew up in Smyrna, and I remember vividly they used to have the International Street Fair. And I think at one point it was called the Italian Street Fair. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But here
And
in Murfreesboro.
it was the Main Street, the Arts and Humanities Council.
But it was all the
sponsored-
international folks.
Right.
Right.
There was actually two organizations that sponsors that. Now
Yeah.
it started,
Well, I remember in elementary school when that would come here, all of the groups would go around to all of the schools, and so you might see somebody singing and dancing and talking about I can't even remember now, Italy and
Hungary,
Venezuela,
Czechoslovakia,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, and I mean it made an impression on me
Absolutely.
as a child.
Absolutely.
And so to give them the opportunity to be exposed to not only the international stuff, but the old time, to jazz, to blues, to all the rich history that is what we would call modern music.
Right.
I mean, how did Miley Cyrus start to sound like that? Right.
Exactly.
It's an evolution that goes back.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, to Africa.
Right.
To the if you go way back, right? So
Well, and also that kind of leads to another reason why we do what we do. It is because I know through those photographs, I have seen those images of what happened here and how rich this area, Murfreesboro, Nashville became the entertainment side of it, okay? But the front porch picking and the actual where the embryo took place right in the contiguous counties in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where we kind of started thinking, what if we, like our friends over in Shelbyville, they kept talking, Gloria, it's the bigger map. It's a bigger map than what you're talking about. Not the little map, the big map. And our director over there, Marty Gordon, he just kept saying we need to be from Kentucky to northern Alabama. That's where we need to go, because that's where that music came from.
That's right.
Regional.
It's Middle Tennessee.
That's it.
And it's different. Now, there's the Appalachian style that comes from East Tennessee.
Sure.
There is the blues from West Tennessee. But Middle Tennessee is different. And, there's a swath of land all the way. You can hear it in the early recordings, like the Delmores, who, by the way, Uncle Dave Macon played with when there wasn't an Opry. They were playing vaudeville stages all over the South. And that's why I'm saying we hear, and I was listening to a podcast about the Allman Brothers, that they were influenced by the very folks and the culture that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents.
Sure, you can hear it. I mean, it's country and blues, and then
jazz.
And then they called it Southern rock for a little while. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyway.
Well, it did have its. Well, just to give you context, John Loudermilk, who really found the Allman Brothers, they were here in Middle Tennessee at Castle Heights Military Academy. They were going there. They played at our senior prom
As the
Almond Joys.
No way.
Yes. And here's the other side of that. My mom, she talked the principal into having something other than an orchestra play at the prom. I mean, back then, the orchestra was if you didn't have an orchestra at your senior prom, that was the only thing and nobody went. And my mom talked Mr. Bandy into having a band come like she called it, a combo, and so that was the Almond Joys.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
So
Chord, relatively new organization. What is it? You mentioned when we were off camera, you mentioned about 200 folks on your mailing list at this point, or email list. So what is the purpose of Chord? And when you guys have, I guess it's a monthly meeting, is that right?
Monthly meeting, yeah.
What is it that you guys are trying to, who are you trying to connect? What are you trying to accomplish?
I want to tell a little story right quick.
Sure.
This kind of illustrates this. Years ago, when I lived in East Tennessee and was doing radio back then and involved in doing some counseling and wanted to do that kind of thing, they had a 24/7 crisis line, and I got people to come and spend the night and talk people down from suicide and all that kind of thing.
Quite literally off the ledge.
And, and there was a couple that were friends of ours that were going through a divorce, and it was really painful for them. But I happened to be over at their house one time, and I went to use the restroom, and hanging on the mirror was a little sign that she had drawn that it said, "You drew a circle to exclude me out, but I drew a bigger circle to include you in." And that's what Chord is about. With all of these things that happen, COVID and all that stuff, it just feels like in the divisiveness that's going on in the country, it just feels like there's more and more people wanting to have their little group, and they're going to take on the world. They're going to try to convince everyone else that they're right. We're drawing a bigger circle to include them
And try to shout louder than your neighbor.
Yeah.
Well, to just empathize with people and the struggles that they're going through, because everybody's got some kind of thing that they're uncertain about or
Sure.
feel incompetent about or not appreciated for. So that's the overarching larger thing that we're working on with Chord, is to include people in and hear what they're going through, what their struggles are in their music, and how they try to express their life in their musical career, So the other piece that extends beyond that is let's make this circle much bigger and perpetuate music into the future. Because if we don't pay attention to our kids and teach them to play music and teach them the joys of playing, the kinds of friendships that come out of playing music together, we're not going to have a music industry. I mean, it's that important.
Yes.
To perpetuate this into the future. And politically speaking, I'm thinking if there were more musicians in Congress, we would have fewer problems. You know, because there's a release that comes in playing music together.
It's therapeutic.
That doesn't occur any other way.
Yeah. Well, and as a guy that doesn't play, that can be felt. It can be appreciated. It resonates back to the person that just truly enjoys just sitting and enjoying you pouring your heart out a little bit, right? Whether it's through your words or it's through your fingers or whatever it is, and to be able to sit there and go, yeah, I feel that.
When I practice my guitar, and I'm not an amazing guitarist by any means, but I hear things that I can't play yet. My fingers just don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's a body thing. It's a whole body kind of deal. I can practice on something and it doesn't come together until I'm sitting there patting my foot and feeling the whole thing with my body and then you can if you're having trouble with a piece of it, you can drop out and still stay in the groove, still stay in the beat and pick back up where it comes around where you can play that part. And just keep nudging at the part you can't play, keep coming back to it and hitting it. But you can't do that unless you're patting your foot, unless you are in the groove. And that's the unique thing about music. Whether it's Mozart, whether it's swing band, whether it's Lawrence Welk, you know, you all got to be in rhythm. You all got to stay in the groove, or the whole thing will not hang on and it'll fall apart.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing when it does, but
it's more embarrassing when you're the guy that made it fall apart.
Oh, yeah. and another lady that came here from Australia, she and her husband, and her husband is just about blind. He sits up next to the computer screen with inch-tall letters, and he does email every day that way. But she has 2 or 3 kids, and they're in the Christian music field, but they had both been band instructors when they were back in it wasn't Australia, it was somewhere near there, one of those related islands.
New Zealand.
New Zealand, that's right, New Zealand, and they all talk like New Zealanders. It's beautiful to listen to them. But she would tell her kids when they were growing up, if you want to be a musician, you bloody well practice. And so the whole house, they've got cement blocks here, and the drum cage is in there. The whole house is a recording studio, and those kids work all the time.
Sure.
But they're great. When you hear them play, they're so tight.
So who's in the chord organization? It's musicians and it's
right. It's rather an eclectic bunch right now, and I think what we're going to and we have a topic every time. Last time we talked about a lot of times that you'll have an event and you'll send a press release out or want to communicate what your event's all about. And you don't realize you didn't even put the date or the time on it, and so
the address,
some pertinent information. So we had folks. We were very pragmatic. We try to be useful. We have useful information. Now you might be the actual player, but if you don't get your word out to what you're doing, the public relation aspect of it, and that you. And I'm very well aware of the public relation aspect of just what's happened to us with our community and how we've talked about how we had to change venues. That is a public relations nightmare. People come at you with both guns
What do you
ablaze.
mean you moved to Shelbyville? This is a Murfreesboro event. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is still a Murfreesboro event because we will be administering doing all the grant preparation here, bringing MTSU into this process.
But the point being, there's a logical reason to move there.
Right. And the other logical reason is we did outgrow Cannonsburg. I knew that years ago. It was just too, and there's no place to grow. That really. When you see the other content that's going in on Medical Center Parkway, I didn't see how that was going to happen either. Because we had 3,000 people at Uncle Dave last year, and if you put anybody else out there, and there were 4 at Jazz Fest, so yeah, I mean it's going to be, and all the other the congestion is just you just two things can't occupy the same place at the same time.
Right.
So we have 1,000 parking spaces, which we've always had
already. That's a yeah.
We have about 300 camping spaces for RVs, which everybody who ever came to Uncle Dave were always disappointed that we didn't have RV camping in Rutherford County. I mean,
no camping period.
No, well,
Really?
And that wasn't.
There's one campground listed for Murfreesboro.
It's in Smyrna.
No. There's one in Murfreesboro.
Oh, okay.
It's Rockhaven.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
okay, well, there. Okay, there's certain requirements to that
Yes.
one.
Yes.
So yeah, that's true. But so we've got that, and also when you spoke about Jazz Fest and the we have an indoor facility, so we are not restricted to weather, and that has been the heat or the rain or something. So we can still have things going inside and outside.
That's right.
So
That's right.
and
that indoor arena will hold 4,400 people.
Right.
Right.
That's nice.
So there's just so much more. And will it be different? Yeah. I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be different, but we are going to add back. We're adding back the contest, which
Yes.
is going to be nice, and things that folks I think look a little bit more like Uncle Dave Making Days, and so that's going to happen. But the other thing is, there's nothing that tells the story, the agriculture history of this area like the mule.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't. All those photographs that Dad did in the 30s and others prior to that, there's a mule in every picture.
That's right.
No cars. So it's crazy.
We've
Yeah.
got one.
I
picture
didn't pay
where-
attention to it till now.
We've got one picture where there was a contest for how much cotton you could get on your wagon, and the whole street is full of cotton wagons being pulled by mules. You had to have just 2 mules to pull a wagon. That was the rule. But and only 2 cars somewhere in the picture. Can you find the cars? But
Right.
it really, the mule is an elegant creature. I don't know. I never was really because I didn't know the difference between a mule and a donkey. But they are very, very special. They're like big dogs. It takes 5 years, according to Marty Gordon, to finish a mule. They call it a finished mule. When it is people friendly, when it understands English pretty much. I mean, you can tell it what you need it to do, and it will do it.
Mm-hmm.
But we finished up a meeting out there after we had met the mules. We went inside and had our meeting and came back out. It was getting dark. It was time to go home. And all the mules came out of the barn up to the fence. They wanted to say goodbye to us.
And they hug you like a dog. They take their it's crazy.
That's cool.
If you can get beyond the size, and but they like to have their heads rubbed, and they like to listen to you and be just be.
And
present.
you might want to speak to the story of Uncle Dave Macon. He had a cargo company with mules from Murfreesboro to Midland, which was Kittrell. He called it Midland, to Cannon County, back and forth every single day. Well, it wasn't
2 trips a week.
Two trips a week. And I was speaking of photographs. We have a glass negative that Bill restored. Which I want to see if we can't, since we've got all this better equipment now. I think Uncle Dave's in this photo, in this glass negative on the east side of the square. His little goatee, you can see it, and there he is with his wagon and mules, and I know it's him. He was a short man with a derby, and there's just he's very he's very distinctive, black coat. I just got to be him. But yeah, it fits because he used to go along the Woodbury Highway singing, playing his banjo, even in those days. That's the other thing. We don't know music because we don't listen and play it as families anymore. Everyone had a piano in the parlor.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Dave Macon's sister was a classically trained musician.
Mm-hmm.
She played, in fact, encouraged him some of the musical styles that he performed on the banjo was what he heard being played on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone played a music, an instrument of sorts, either on the front porch or, singing under a shade tree. And we kind of want to recreate that kind of atmosphere, and to say to that, what we're going to do in Shelbyville, we have 600 fourth graders that are coming to our event Thursday and Friday, and bring their parents back on Saturday. That's going to teach them homestead crafts and all of the music that came out of that era. We're working on that.
That's awesome.
And the chord musicians, we're going to plug them into that situation because that's what they wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah, now the kids are going to come to them.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you guys out of the chord organization, at least as I understand it, is you also want to get kind of bridging some gaps between venues and promotion and musician and kind of just be, I guess, advocates and almost placement in a way of, okay, you're a whatever player and you're a something else player, and this place is looking for, that, and just kind of be a hub,
right?
Basically, is that right?
That's exactly right. Well, and most immediately, what happened during Jazz Fest is they needed volunteers, so we were able to help them with that, and just some technical support that hadn't, because they were new, they had not done this before,
right?
So it was fun to see that kind of materialize, and everybody's skill set's different, so you can, build on each other's skill sets, even
and experience.
Because some people had new things that we knew things they didn't, and they knew things we didn't. And
sure.
Same things happen with International Folk Fest. That's the one thing that's really good about growth in our community. If we can find a way to be advocates for each other. And listen to each other as things are changing. Well, okay, so you make a decision about something. One of the things that Thom spoke to this before, and what we're noticing, and because of our son is a professional booking agent now, and grew out of Uncle Dave Macon days, but the inventory of talent we have to nurture that. A lot of those early musicians that got their start in the contest in Uncle Dave Macon days are now professional musicians. They're in Nashville. But that shrunk. That inventory where you got, people like you're talking about Miley Cyrus, or, where is that talent coming from? They have to somehow learn in the schools. They have to learn it somewhere. And people are so busy now. I mean, maybe they're just not paying attention to nurturing that talent. And I think it's time that at schools, they've not really paid. It's not a priority. Music is kind of an afterthought when it should be on top of the desktop.
It's an elective for a small group.
Right,
Sure.
right. Well, and we're so we now know that being focused on the test may not necessarily be the indicator of learning. And then I grew up as being taught that wasn't the way you teach kids. That's not the way people get educated. It's
and honestly, that's not, having been a teacher, and you as well. That's not why you go into teaching.
Absolutely not why
you have a message. You have a talent that you want to use.
You have a passion.
Yeah.
And
it just
It's
goes
about
away.
building relationships.
It is.
Well,
Always.
and you know it when you see the younger ones when let's say 3, 4, 5, where they still have the magic. They still want to they still want to see. They can't. They can do anything.
That's right.
And when that happens, and I've even asked my grandson. I said, when did its learning stop being fun? And he said, 2nd grade. Well, here we got this situation, and it's not just in Tennessee; it's all over the country where we're so focused on somehow another the statistic and data that's an indicator of whether you're learning or not. When we know cognition does not happen like that, you don't learn something because you have mastered it for recovery and recall on a test. That's not how and you didn't learn how to be a teacher.
No, it's always about application. Right. It's always about, here's this formula, here's this data set, here's this whatever. Okay, so what?
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And if you can't answer the so what, then you're going to retain that just as long as you need to retain it, and then it's gone.
How much fun is this going to be when we're over in Shelbyville? We've got it. So our friends over there have already figured this out. They're going to learn how to do cooking with cast iron.
It's awesome.
Yeah, they're going to learn how camp songs that we grew up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well, and even so, let's go back to the cast iron thing for just a sec, right? Something very simple, right? Here's a skillet. It's really heavy.
it's science.
You know, all the science that's involved in it, between the metal, between the heat conduction, between evenly dispersing, between
and the patina,
all of that.
I made a big mistake when I was a kid with thinking I was going to shine up my mother's cooking pan.
And she about killed you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was like it just came from the store, and that was years of patina.
Yeah.
Gone.
You ruined them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Threw that in the garbage.
My wife has a cast iron skillet that she uses pretty regularly, and bless my kid's heart, they decided to wash it for her.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Did you put soap on that?"
That's right.
You know, and it's, I mean, she cleans it with salt. She does,
all
re-oils it, all
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah.
And my daughter, she was like, "Yes," she thought she was doing the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And she just hadn't learned yet.
Right. Right.
But
well,
yeah.
and that some of the crafts that came out of the 19th century, early 20th century, some of those are going to get to see that.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be. We have a dream that we want to bring the pickers in there to actually one-on-one with the with the children too, so they'll get to like a musical petting zoo where they can see what it sounds like and feels like to play a banjo.
We're going to transform a row of mule barns.
Oh yeah, this is going to be so cool.
We're working with some people to help us redecorate it to look like an old Western town, and that's going to be Pickersville with porches.
That's cool.
Pickersville and Shelbyville.
Yeah, and the kids can
cool.
walk down through there and listen to music and talk to the musicians and that kind of thing.
Well, we're getting close on time here, so let's hit a couple high notes real quick. When's the next chord meeting?
Okay, so it's going to be June 26th. It's always on the last Monday of each month.
Okay,
so
and where's it at?
It's at Greenhouse Ministries.
Okay.
And right there.
Just off the square here.
Right. It's
307 South Academy.
So, yeah, it's on the Academy.
And who's invited to chord?
Anybody can come if you have like you don't have to be a musician. You can just be someone an enthusiast, a venue owner. Yeah, in fact, we want venue owners there. That's been the issue that we've had fewer venues for our musicians to play.
Well, and then licensed venues, right? Because here's the thing, and I'm super passionate about this. You got to somebody wrote that song that somebody's covering. So
absolutely.
There needs to be compensation there.
Absolutely. ASCAP and BMI fees, yes.
I pay all of mine.
I know. See, that's exactly right.
Yep. All right. And then Uncle Dave Making Days is
September 28th.
To October 1st. It's 4 days.
And where is it going to be?
It's going to be at the Cooper Steel Arena. It's the old celebration grounds where people are familiar with the Walking Horse celebration. And it will be right there. And also, I want to and I want to make mention. Uncle Dave Making Days. It's not free, but it's for a donation, which all of the gate goes to veterans. So it's not. We're not doing it free this year, but when you give whatever you want to, it's whatever that you feel like you can make a donation. This actually goes to the veterans, and so we're partnering with veterans. They're actually helping us on the ground, so that's why we're going to let the admission be a direct benefit to the veterans.
Very cool.
And you also have the opportunity this year. This is new. You have the opportunity to win a mule.
That's right.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Yeah,
right.
You can win if you win the mule. It's a $5 ticket, and then you get your name in the mayonnaise jar, and it's not a mayonnaise jar, but there will be a drawing on the last day of the festival. And if you win the mule and you have no place to keep a mule, don't want the mule, they will auction it off, and half of the auction price goes to you, and the other half goes to the veteran.
Last year's mule was auctioned off for $3,000. So the veteran benefited the person who won got $1,500, and then the veterans got $1,500. So it's and also I want to make mention we are doing a fundraiser in Shelbyville at the Gordon View Farms that Marty, our director, he is going to offer in his farm for a fundraiser that it's $25, and that $25 gets you a barbecue dinner and $5 and another ticket
and
to go.
Music.
And live music. We're going to have a barbecue and
meet the mules.
And meet the mules. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we have limited
And when is that?
That's the 17th of June. It's coming up.
Oh, that's real
it's
soon.
Real soon. Yeah, 4 to 8, and it's going to be. We'll have bluegrass music, and it's a beautiful setting. Oh my gosh, it's just absolutely gorgeous. So you call Thom and I you can check us out at Shacklett's, and we'll get you that ticket if you want to go.
Is there a website as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it just Uncle Dave
makingdays.com?
Okay.
Right.
That's super simple. Maybe that's
yeah, and or American Mules and Bluegrass Association.com. And we're actually getting ready to move. We're going to be one, Making Music and Mules eventually. So
Making Music and Mules.
MACON. Mules.
MACON.
Right. Not MAKIN apostrophe.
Right. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, very good. Thom and Gloria, thank you so much for being on with us today.
All right.
And we'll put some of those links in the comments as well. And just look it up. Uncle Dave Making Days. Sounds like it's going to be
amazing.
Glorious.
Glorious.
Yeah. Never heard that one before,
no.
have you? Yeah.
Well, actually not.
It's going to be awesome. So
my mother said that.
Yeah, perfect. And then definitely if you have an interest in live music here in Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, go attend the chord meeting.
That's exactly right. We'll see you June 26th at Greenhouse.
That's perfect. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Bye-bye.
You guys have a good rest of the week.
Thank you so much.